Imagine waking up in a remote tent at 3 a.m., screaming as unseen claws slice deep into your face. To understand how 4 people ended up in that exact situation, we have to go back to 1997. A man named Surendra, his wife Gomti, and 2 college friends traveled to the mountains of Uttarakhand, looking to set up the ultimate off-grid camp. They hired a 16-year-old local guide who promised them a spot near a waterfall. But halfway there, the group spotted a stunning, wide-open meadow. They decided to stop right there, despite the guide urgently warning them that camping in that specific field was strictly forbidden. He explained the local folklore. The village considered the meadow a spiritually volatile zone. Wandering souls occupied the space, making it highly dangerous for anyone to stay after dark. It is a classic collision of perspectives. You have tourists wanting a beautiful view for the night, pushing directly against an invisible, fiercely protected local boundary. The group completely ignored the teenager. They prioritized their own entertainment and decided his warnings were meaningless. They immediately broke every rule the guide laid out. They pitched their tents in the middle of the meadow, built a roaring bonfire, and brought out the alcohol. When the guide repeated his warnings about the spirits, they laughed in his face. They mocked his beliefs and told him to have a drink to calm his nerves. Later in the night, they committed the ultimate desecration. The 3 men wandered away from the fire and urinated directly on the sacred, restricted land. The teenage guide, genuinely terrified by what he was watching, retreated into his own tent. He refused to sleep, keeping a constant watch on the group. The campers went to sleep feeling victorious. They had bypassed an arbitrary village rule to secure a great view, completely unaware that their actions had triggered a supernatural death sentence. At 2 a.m., the retaliation began. The campers jolted awake as an invisible entity began physically attacking them. They ran out of their tents with bleeding scratch marks sliced into their faces. They packed up and fled at dawn, retreating miles away to Gomti's family home. But the haunting tracked them. The very next night, in a completely different location, they woke up to the exact same bleeding cuts. Desperate and terrified, the group went to a local temple in the town of Bageshwar to beg the regional priest for help. The priest delivered a terrifying diagnosis. Because they had consumed alcohol and urinated on that specific sacred site, they now had a maximum of 10 days to live. This was a fatal spiritual conviction. Survival now required immediate, drastic intervention. This flowchart illustrates what they triggered. Desecrating a sacred site forms a hatya, a highly aggressive entity immune to normal prayers and standard deities. The only countermeasure is a jagar, using rhythmic music to funnel the entity into a human host to negotiate face-to-face. Luckily for the tourists, a jagar was scheduled in the village 2 days later. The 4 of them were brought in for treatment. As the ritual started, the Hatya spirit violently possessed Surendra's friend Prakash. He instantly gained unnatural physical strength, snapping a village elder's arm and pacing the room with heavy, animal-like breaths. The modern tourists who had openly mocked the local lore were now trapped in a room, watching that exact lore physically dominate their friend. The chaos was finally broken by the arrival of Golu Devta, revered throughout Uttarakhand as the absolute god of justice and truth. He channeled his authority through a 60-year-old local man who ran directly into the center of the panic. Without hesitation, the elderly man grabbed a handful of sacred ash and smeared it onto the possessed friend. The entity was instantly paralyzed, bringing the violence to a sudden halt. Speaking through the elder, Golu Devta negotiated their survival. The group had to physically scrub the desecrated land clean, offer a 10-kilo meat sacrifice, and swear an oath to never return to the meadow at night. They did not fight their way out or outsmart the entity. They survived through total, humiliating submission to the local religious authority. The group immediately fulfilled every demand and survived the countdown. To this day, whenever Surendra and Gomti visit the region, they go straight to the temple to pay their respects out of fear and gratitude. It highlights a strange psychological quirk of travel. Why do so many tourists see a "do not cross" sign and immediately decide to step over it? Outsider ego often drives us to treat local customs as quaint suggestions. We prioritize our own entertainment and the brief thrill of breaking a rule over the lived experience of the locals. Respecting local boundaries acknowledges that you are walking through someone else's reality. In places like Uttarakhand, ignoring those boundaries carries a physical, violent penalty.